If you like true crime, dark history, the haunted and paranormal, then we think you'll like Ghost Town.
Ghost Town is hosted by me, Rebecca Lieb.
And me, Jason Horton.
We cover both notorious and obscure true crimes,
the haunted, paranormal, and unexplained,
and the dark history of everything from world events to pop culture.
There are new episodes of Ghost Town every Wednesday and Friday.
Find out for yourself what Vulture.com called essential listening and one listener called a total waste of time.
So pause the podcast you're listening to right now.
And go subscribe to Ghost Town for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
And at ghosttownpod.com.
The figure floated up next to my bed, and I was looking up at it. It was a young woman. She had kind of a veil over her head. But this I'll never forget. She reached down and touched my leg in the bed, and I could feel the touch. The cover's depressed, and I was aware of that. That shocked me. And then she rose slightly, and when she went up, she dissipated.
Raleigh may be known as North Carolina's capital city, a hub of innovation, education, southern charm, and yes, some seriously good comfort food. But if you look a little closer, you will find it has a ghost story for nearly every street lamp. Behind the stately homes, city parks, historic landmarks, there is something that lingers. This episode takes us into the haunted heart of Raleigh, where restless spirits make sure their presence is known. Welcome to First in Fright, where we explore eerie legends, supernatural tales, and everything that goes bump in the North Carolina night. I'm your host, Cooper Thornton. This is episode 11, The Spirits of Raleigh. Tucked away in a corner of Pullen Park, which is known for its carousel, playgrounds, and swimming pool, there's a building that's home to Theater in the Park, a community theater group that's been putting on performances for over 70 years. Their international acclaim brings over 30,000 people to their shows every year, but not all the drama there happens on stage.
My name is Ira David Wood III. I am the executive director and founder of Theater in the Park in Raleigh, North Carolina. We are a year-round operating theater. We have had a lot of very talented people come through our doors. Michael C. Hall, my daughter, Evan Rachel Wood, who was on Westworld, started there. Frankie Muniz from Malcolm in the Middle.
Malcolm.
Ow! When I became executive director, we were at the time without a facility, and we went on a search. And to our delight and surprise, we found one. It was a former National Guard Armory facility in Pullen Park, which is one of the oldest, if not the oldest, public parks in the United States. So the facility has been around since the mid-30s. And anytime you have a facility that has fulfilled so many purposes, you're bound to, like a magnet, I think, attract entities and spirits and a feeling that you've been joined by something that's very hard to describe. When I talk about theater ghosts, they are not scary things to me. They are members of our family, and they are there, waiting to be invited to become a part of something that they obviously are attracted to, because that's why they stick around. In theater, we have a tradition. It goes back years, and it's called a ghost light. When you close the building up for the day and the lights are off, there is basically a 60-watt bulb on a pole with casters underneath it, and you roll it out into the center of the stage, turn it on, and you leave. We don't leave them in the dark. There's always a light. It's always, you're invited in. This is your space now. Enjoy it, inhabit it. We're glad you're here. It's a spiritual thing. You have to understand that I come from a family who is very comfortable with spirits. My uncle died in the D-Day invasion. Mom got pregnant with a second child, and they decided they were going to name the child Carol for my uncle. So my mom went into labor. My grandmother was in bed that night, and she opened her eyes and looked at the foot of the bed, and her son was standing there, Uncle Carol. And she said, "Carol, you're okay?" And he said, "Of course I am, Mama." And she said, "Why have you come back?" And he said, "Mom, do you think I would miss the night that Carol was born?" And the phone rang. And it was my dad. He said, "We have a daughter, and her name is Carol." So being in a facility where we welcomed spirits was not at all unusual for me. We were doing a show at my theater, and I had a young lady come in from the western part of the state, from the mountains, Blue Ridge Mountains in North Carolina. And she came to choreograph the show. She worked all day long into the early evening. I looked at her and I said, "You can't drive back to the mountains now. It's too late. I've got a guest room at the house." So we sat up until maybe 1 o'clock in the morning. And I finally said, "Look, it's late." So she went into her room. I went into my room, got into bed. A few minutes passed, and I opened my eyes, and the doorway was at the foot of my bed across the room. And there was a woman standing in the doorway. My first thought was, she's come from the other room. But almost instantly, I realized it was not her. And the figure was translucent, and it was bluish in color, and it glowed a little. And I took a breath, and it's that thing like, oh my God, I'm actually seeing a ghost. It was not a scary thing at all. And the figure floated up next to my bed, and I was looking up at it. It was a young woman. She had kind of a veil over her head. She was looking at me, and she smiled. I could see the expression. But this I'll never forget. She reached down and touched my leg in the bed, and I could feel the touch. The cover's depressed, and I was aware of that. That shocked me. And then she rose slightly, and when she went up, she dissipated. And then I heard an explosion inside my head. And I called this girl's name who was in the guest room, and I think she immediately ran in. And I explained to her what I had just seen, and she sat on the bed and she went, "That's my grandmother. She travels with me." We've had more than a few experiences at my theater. After we took up residence, it wasn't very long before I heard stories of a blonde boy. A little blonde boy who was seen frequently late at night. People have heard him laughing. He's playing, I guess, in the space. I have seen him from a distance, actually going up a flight of steps into another room in the theater. My technical director saw him as well and thought it was me going up into this room. He followed and went into the room. No one was there. And then he realized, oh, well, I just met the blonde boy. We have had times after productions when my oldest son and my daughter, Evan, will take a group of people and they will go in search of the blonde boy to see if they can find him, or they'll sit in the audience and listen for sounds.
You never know. Have you ever seen a ghost at your theater?
I've never seen a ghost, but my father and my brother both have heard things late at night there. And some people have seen things in my dad's theater. I heard there's like a little boy there.
I don't know why he's chosen the theater, why he's taken up residence, but it doesn't seem to be a tragedy. For some reason, I think the theater has become kind of a magnet for this little boy, and we're very glad he's there. When he has appeared, he's dressed, it's just a shirt and darker pants. I've not seen his face very clearly. He's moving. He's never stationary. He's running up and down the stairs. It's like his playtime, I think. If you see him descending the steps, that's the best time to catch him coming down because you see the front. Otherwise, he's going by you or he's going up the stairs. And if you try to follow him, he's not there. It's kind of like it's tag. You're chasing him, but he's hiding. We've had an actress in our productions, Kelly McConkey, and Kelly came up to me one day and said, I'm a member of this group called the Ghost Guild. We have paraphernalia that we use to test the presence of ghosts. And would you mind if we came to the theater one night? And I said, oh my God, I'd love it. One of the things we have in the theater, we have audience seating that is movable because we're basically a black box theater, which means you pick a play, you design your set, and then you move the audience platforms around it. The seating platforms telescope. So if you are not using them and you need the space, you push them together and they sandwich together. When the Ghost Guild came in for their evening, the seating platforms kind of went crazy. I think it's because they were telescoped. It wasn't a theater. I think the presences wanted it to be a theater. You know, pull the seats out and make it a theater. They made a recording of the sound from the telescoping audience platform, and I listened to it. It's pretty amazing. When you imbue a space with the human emotions that are shared between an audience and the performers, you are creating something so special. And it is a magnet, I think, to spirits who may otherwise be lost in the ether. I don't know. There is a reason that they choose theaters, I think, and it goes back years and years.
Spirits are drawn to theater in the park because it feels like home, and just a short ride away, there's a prestigious mansion with a ghost that feels the same, especially about his bed. The North Carolina Executive Mansion, also known as the Governor's Mansion, has been home to the state's governors since 1891, and its red brick exterior exudes the timeless elegance of Southern grandeur. Inside, a plush red carpet stretches across the elegant entrance, leading past hand-carved wooden banisters and massive crystal chandeliers. Over the years, governors have come and gone, except for one who refuses to move out. In the early 1970s, then-Governor Bob Scott decided to replace an old carved bed in the mansion. It was too short for his taste, so he brought in a modern king-sized version, and unintentionally stirred up a little ghostly drama. This wasn't just any bed. Nearly a century earlier, it belonged to Governor Daniel Fowle, the mansion's very first resident. But he didn't enjoy it long. He died in it only 3 months after moving in. Once Governor Scott's new bed was moved in, things got noisy. Every night at exactly 10 p.m., he heard loud knocking from the wall where the old headboard had been. At first he thought it was plumbing, but maintenance found nothing. The mystery continued when Governor Fowle's elderly daughter visited the mansion and asked if her father's bed was still in the room. That probably would have been a good time for Governor Scott to put it back, but he didn't. And so the ghost stories continued. Years later, in 2013, Governor Pat McCrory embraced the legend with a wink. He made a point every evening to say goodnight to Governor Fowle's spirit, and later admitted to playing pranks on his staff.
We roll down grapefruits down the stairs and scare the guards because they say the ghost is going down the stairs. Governor Fowle is still there.
Yeah.
Well, he was the first governor to live there, and he was the first governor to die there.
At Halloween, Governor McCrory couldn't resist having fun and would put a coffin prop in the front yard and theatrically introduce Governor Fowle as if he were about to rise again. Then in 2017, Governor Roy Cooper and First Lady Kristen decided to finally bring Governor Fowle's bed out of storage and place it upstairs in a room their daughter would occasionally stay in.
We have just, within the past month, moved his bed back into the house. Apparently that was supposed to be the cause of his unquiet, was if his bed was moved around. So his bed has come back and is now upstairs. It is a beautiful bed. It's rosewood. It was handmade for him.
First daughter Hillary Cooper posted on Facebook soon after, quote, "Of course Mom put the dead guy's bed in my room." Even with the Cooper family trying to make nice with Governor Fowle, the knocking still didn't stop. In fact, the family's pet sitter later swore he heard strange noises one evening, including a voice saying hello or Helen. Helen, fittingly, was the name of one of Governor Fowle's daughters. Though the governor's mansion has one resident ghost, it's far from being Raleigh's most haunted home. That title goes to a house just down the street, where entire generations of spirits hang out. A short walk down Person Street, and yes, that's really the name, leads to the Mordecai House, where past persons never quite left. It is the oldest home in Raleigh on its original foundation, with a history going back to the city's earliest families. The Mordecai House sits about a mile away from the cemetery grounds. It's the oldest home in Raleigh on its original foundation, and one of the most haunted. The Mordecai family, once among the city's most prominent, lived here for generations. They're the same family that donated some land that became part of Oakwood Cemetery, and their very own are buried there. But their legacy is complex. The house was once the center of a sprawling plantation, built and sustained by enslaved people whose stories are just as vital. Today, it's a public museum with thousands of original artifacts. And some say the past never left. Silverware in the dining room moves on its own. Piano keys play with no one at the bench. And some visitors have seen figures in the upstairs windows, even when the house is empty.
My name is Nelson Noss, and my true passion comes alive on nights and weekends as the executive director and co-founder of the Ghost Guild. The Ghost Guild is a registered North Carolina-based nonprofit that's dedicated to paranormal research and historic preservation. We currently have 12 dedicated volunteers, all sharing a passion for history, science, and the unexplained. The very beginning, we aimed to do something that was a little bit different. So instead of taking on personal residential cases, we chose to partner with locations of historical significance. We've had the pleasure of partnering with organizations like Theater in the Park and Raleigh's Mordecai Historic Park. So to understand the Mordecai House, we should briefly talk about a man named Joel Lane. He was a pivotal figure, often called the father of Raleigh, since he was instrumental in the very formation of North Carolina's capital city, since he sold over 1,000 acres of his vast property to the state. The Mordecai House was actually built as a wedding gift for Henry and Polly Lane by Henry's father, Joel Lane. The Mordecai name would actually come when Lane's granddaughter, Peggy Lane, married Moses Mordecai in 1817. Moses was a member of one of the original 300 Jewish families in the United States. As a matter of fact, he was also the first Jewish man recorded to have lived in Raleigh. And just for the record, I am pronouncing it correctly. There are different stories as to why exactly, but once Moses lived in Raleigh, he changed the pronunciation of the family name from Mordecai to Mordecai. So let me tell you about some of the sightings that I've had as well as other people have had, and then I will share with you one of the most insane experiences I've had in the house. One of the most prominent things that have been talked about at the Mordecai House is the sound of silverware. And every time that we've encountered these particular sounds was when we were on the second floor. But from what we could tell, it sounded like it was coming from the dining room. The sound was so exceptionally loud that we recorded it. And when we shared this, one of the docents expressed how they had just recently given a tour to a school group, and when they were in the dining room, everyone clearly heard what sounded like a utensil that was moving on a plate. And one of the children in the tour group said that they actually saw the fork move. I have not personally seen the forks move. I would love to. So perhaps, as some speculate, the matriarch of the house continues her duties, ensuring that everything is in order and presentable to its guests. One of the ghost stories that's connected to the house involves a picture of Patty Mordecai, who is Moses' granddaughter. And it's been said that if anything derogatory or unkind is said about Patty, that her picture falls over. One night when I was alone in the house, I went upstairs to the dresser where Patty's picture is located. I started saying a few things that weren't too nice about the picture, and I was hoping to witness this phenomenon for myself. But after about 20 minutes, I was unsuccessful. And that's when suddenly I heard what I would describe as two distinct thuds, followed by a male voice. And those thuds even had a deep bass to them. To eliminate the possibility of external sounds, we did review our external ambient sound recorders, and we're pretty sure that these sounds originated from inside the house. Now, exactly what this recording represents is up to debate, but having heard it firsthand, to me, it sounded like someone falling. First falling to their knees, which is the initial thud that you hear, and then the rest of their body falling to the ground, which is the second thud. And then it sounds like someone yelling. I hear, "Get up." And interestingly, about half of those who have listened to the clip interpret the voice to say "get up," while the other half interpret it to say "get out." So here's the actual recording from that day. You tell us, does it say "get up" or "get out"? The Lady in Grey is arguably the most frequently mentioned apparition at the Mordecai House. She's often described as appearing as a full apparition on the second floor front balcony, dressed in a gray 19th century gown. Accounts also vary, though, with many witnesses reporting her as a swirling gray mist, particularly near the piano, and sometimes on or around the staircase. We obviously don't know with certainty, but many believe the Lady in Grey to be Mary Willis Mordecai Turk, the granddaughter of Moses Mordecai.
Mary lived a significant portion of her life at Mordecai, and her presence is strongly felt by many who visit its halls. Her husband, William Turk, had her admitted to Dorothea Dix Hospital, which was an insane asylum in Raleigh. Now, when he admitted her, he said that she was full of rage, which, in my opinion, is more than likely postpartum depression. But mental health was treated very differently back then. Now, her sisters did manage to get her out of the asylum, and she returned to Mordecai. Mary Willis Mordecai Turk passed away in 1937 from a cerebral hemorrhage. She's buried in Oakwood Cemetery, close to the home that she loved and lived in.
So I had a particularly compelling personal experience in July of 2023 that could be tied to the Gray Lady. I was alone in the house, and I had made my way up to Mary's bedroom. While I was in her room, I was specifically talking about Mary's husband, and I was asking aloud if she was upset that a portrait of him had been hung in her room after he had committed her to an asylum. And that's when I suddenly felt a drastic temperature drop and goosebumps appeared on my right arm. At that exact time, in the room directly across the hall, a data logger that we had placed there started going off. Not entirely sure why it was alarming, I decided to make my way into the other room. And now, as I entered that hallway between the two rooms, I glanced down the hallway. Did I just see what I thought I saw? Now, I would describe it as a solid black outline of a person on the right-hand side of the fireplace, partially in front of the window. And it was actually so dark that it completely blocked out the light from the street light outside. So as I reversed, this dark figure appeared to quickly dissipate to the right-hand side of the room. It turns out that another team had a related incident. Early on in their investigations, they recorded what they describe as a video anomaly. Now, they had set up a video camera, and they had just left it running in the house, and there was no one else in the house. And what they recorded appears that the screen goes dark twice, as though something is going through the video feed, and it appeared to be moving from the right to the left, all while the time code of the recorder continued to run. I've had the opportunity to watch the video, and I certainly see similarities. So in terms of looking at this particular experience compared to others I've had in the past, this was definitely the most compelling experience that I have had at Mordecai Historic Park. It's definitely these types of experiences that keep me wanting to continue what I'm doing.
If you want to try to catch a glimpse of the Gray Lady, you know where to look. Next time, we head to the Smoky Mountains, where Cherokee legends remind us that some spirits don't appear the way you might expect.
Her body was covered with skin, hard as rock. She had a long, razor-sharp spear finger made from bone that she used to stab humans in the back and pull out their livers, which she would eat, bloody and raw.
To learn more about the paranormal places and scary stories of North Carolina, visit ncfirstinfright.com. Discover trails and destinations that will haunt you in the best way, and share your own NC scare by tagging hashtag #NCFirstInFright. First in Fright is a production of Visit North Carolina, Luke Wire, and AYR Media. Hosted by me, Cooper Thornton. Executive producers Katie Bailey and Dana Grimstead for Visit North Carolina. Executive producers Nancy Landisberg, Michael Ashley, and Ryan Coleman for Luke Wire. Executive producer Eliza Rosen for AYR Media. Produced and written by Sarah Auspitz. Edited and mixed by Cameron Taggy. Casting producer Danielle Hillenbrand. AYR Media Coordinator Andy Levine. Studio engineer Mac Gary.